Welcome to Morning Report Top Stories, a selection of news from Radio New Zealand National's morning news programme.
Campbell Stewart's parents, John and Joanne Stewart. Kia ora, korua.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
John, if I can start with you, tell me about your day yesterday, because Campbell wasn't even going to be riding, was he, in this event?
Yeah, it was an interesting morning. We were waiting to hear. We heard the news that Aaron may be out, but we waited all day till lunchtime, and I was just until the news came through. Then we had to get organised for the evening to enjoy it because we didn't know he was racing until about midday yesterday. I took the afternoon off too before it, so I was allowed to do that from work.
Oh, that's pretty good. So you got to you got to get everything together. Joanne, if I can bring you in, what did you, when you knew it was all on at midday, what did you get started doing?
Keeping ourselves very busy, really. It was just pretty exciting to see him lining up against those great cycling. So no, it was exciting.
Because I mean, you'd know that obviously he's got the calibre from the world champs a couple of years back, but when you're not expecting to have to be in that position, what was it like when you actually started watching and you saw what was going on?
Oh, it was just neat at the start line, as I say, just having those other, guys on the start line, those big names, and thinking, oh my goodness, how's our son ever going to compete with that? But no, he did a great job, and he's a very happy boy.
I bet he is. John, have you had a chance to have a word with him yet?
Yeah, he called us last night, and he was really moved last night. We've never seen him like that before, and he was just so fortunate to have mentioned about his team, how great they've been with their support and the coaching staff and the communities that have got around him to get him to that silver medal last night. He was just so proud of everybody around him.
What did you say to him?
I actually don't know. He couldn't talk. I just don't know, but I had to cheer him up a bit. I offered him a few surprises when he comes back, so we'll see what they look like.
Joanne, interesting here they're saying that, this was obviously quite a big deal for Campbell. He was pretty moved. Is that something that you hadn't seen before from him?
No.
And why do you think that was?
Oh, it's just the biggest. He always said, don't worry, it's always about the next stage and about the big picture. And I guess this was the big picture, and he delivered. So, no, it was pretty good. We call him Mr. Matter of Fact because he doesn't show a whole lot of emotion, but last night, boy, he did.
I bet. And for you, after you'd seen the race, what do you, and you've seen what's happened, then you have to try to sort of, move on, go to bed, get some sleep. Have you had any sleep?
Not much. No, it was good, and we've been just loaded with lovely support messages from around the country. Old school friends, everyone comes out of the woodwork. It's really lovely to have that support from everyone, and so we're down having breakfast now with his special old junior coach, Mike McRedmond. So it's going to be a nice day.
Look, thank you so much for talking to us. Congratulations again on Campbell Stewart's silver there. That's Joanne and John Stewart, his parents that we were talking to.
And here's the parents of Elise Andrews, who came second in the women's keirin. On the line, we've got John Andrews and Angela Moat Andrews. Good morning to you both. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Well, John, as a former Commonwealth Games medalist yourself, you would have been acutely aware of what was going on last night. I think some of us back here watching were scratching our heads at some of the tactics involved with this racing. Just talk us through how you thought Elise was going. She had a very tough semi, and did you think she had it in the final?
It takes a little bit of luck anyway. It's a really hard, chaotic event, as you saw last night, and there's never anything that's guaranteed. So it doesn't matter probably if you're the best cyclist in the world. In fact, the best cyclist in the world in keirin, the current world champion, was in the B final. So it's a really hard race to perform in. Elise just did so well.
Angela, when you were looking at Elise warming up, could you sense anything in the body language? Were you feeling confident?
I think it was when we saw Elise on the line, and the previous races she'd been really kind of had a very kind of focused and non-emotional face, and I just saw a little smile, and I thought, well, she's got this far, probably didn't expect to get into the final, and now she's just going to go out there and give it her all and have some fun. So I was really encouraged by that.
And John, she was very grateful to both of you and very proud of being part of a cycling family. Just talk us through, did she just take to it straight away?
Yeah, we've always sort of biked with the kids, mostly mountain biking. When we lived in Wanaka, we did lots of mountain biking and here in Christchurch. And when she was a teenager, we used to go for rides. And one day, she and I were kind of sprinting up the road to the car to the finish. And Elise just put it in the biggest gear on her bike and was just going as hard as she could. And I was laughing, riding alongside her, and thinking, oh, this is going to really hurt. And she didn't stop. She was just so strong, even as a kid. And I thought, wow, that was quite amazing.
And Angela, so does she mountain bike as well? I mean, was there a call there to be made? Did you want her to do the mountain biking? Because that, of course, is a big Olympic sport now too.
Oh, it is, but you have to be very tiny, power weight, and Elise is a really big, strong, tall, beautiful girl, and you need to be competitive in mountain biking. You really need to be under 60 kg. However, Elise loves mountain biking, and it's something that we enjoy doing together as a family.
I bet. John, her reaction last night, she was pretty emotional after this. This clearly meant an awful lot to her. Do you think she surprised herself a little bit?
Yeah, she's a really determined kid. Like she's already was a double junior world champion and world record holder in the under-19 ranks, as was Campbell actually. And she's always been super determined. Both of them have got that kind of hidden sort of determination that comes out in competition. And when she gets her mind set on something, nobody better get in her way between what she wants, because she's a real go-getter.
Angela, finally, this is the first women's medal in cycling on the track, I think, since Sarah Ulmer in 2004 won gold. So that's pretty significant, and I guess a good boost for the sport.
Oh, it's just amazing, and I'm hoping that there's young women who are coming up in cycling who are inspired and just ready to get out there, because we can mix it with the best, us Kiwi girls. So it's awesome.
Hey, well, it is awesome. Thank you very much for that, for both of you. Kia ora, John Andrews and Angela Moat Andrews, the parents of Elise Andrews, who picked up a silver last night in the women's keirin.
The big news yesterday, of course, was Lisa Carrington making history, taking gold in the K1 500 and becoming our most successful Olympian ever. She won 3 gold medals at the Tokyo Games, and if she was a country, she'd be 24th on the medal table. Yesterday, she won that third medal, and Maya Burry reports from Tokyo.
After yesterday's win, Carrington now has 5 Olympic gold medals and 1 silver medal to her name, including 3 won in the last week. But the magnitude of her accomplishment hasn't quite dawned on her yet.
Growing up, to be an Olympian was, the epitome of who you wanted to be. They represented so many good values, and so I think for me, something I never thought I would be able to do. It's amazing. I guess I'm just proud of where I come from.
In yesterday's race, Carrington once again comfortably beat her competitors on the water. K1 500 silver medalist Tamara Chapesh told media she was happy to come second to Carrington.
I just want a medal, doesn't matter which. Lisa is in a really good shape now, so for me the silver is same like gold.
And Carrington's medal run could continue yet. She has one final event to compete in this week, the K4 500. Joining her in the boat will be Caitlin Regal, Tenille Hatton and Alicia Hoskin.
I've been chomping at the bit to get back on the water and race. So they're excited, and I think I can feed off that energy.
Carrington says after such a big week and Olympic campaign, it's going to take time to decompress.
I think when I'm sitting in managed isolation for those 2 weeks, I think I'll figure it out then. So yeah, it's been such a huge week, and the last 5 years have been massive as well. So yeah, I think it will dawn on me.
The K4 500 heats get underway at 1:15 this afternoon, with the semi-finals and final being held on Saturday.
Now, in other news, the oil refinery in Northland has run banned training exercises using thousands of litres of firefighting foam containing chemicals linked to cancers. Its fire crews used 60,000 litres of the foam in 9 exercises as recently as a few weeks ago, despite a nationwide order not to train with it. Phil Pennington is with us now. He's got the details. Kia ora, Phil.
Morena, Corin.
All right, take us through what has happened here.
Well, I'm afraid I'm not bringing tidings of unspoiled joy with this one. What's understood to have happened is that a firefighter has blown the whistle on what went on at the refinery, which called in a private investigator. I've got that investigation report from last week. This blames the site's fire manager, speculating he was under stress as he was about to be laid off, and that he was afraid his crew was going to be left vulnerable if they didn't train with this foam. This is particularly toxic foam. Some commentary says this foam is better at fighting fuel fires than the newer fluorine-free foam. We made inquiries last night that show the Environmental Protection Authority and Regional Council are both investigating this training with the foam. The council says from what it knows, it appears the use of it's unlawful.
So what are the risks and, I guess, the illegalities of this foam?
Well, this foam called PFAS. I will give you the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances is what it is. I've been reporting on this for some years. Defence are contaminated around quite a few bases with this. At the level of a drop in an Olympic-sized pool, this stuff can be nasty. It lasts thousands of years and builds up in the body. Anyway, it's still not illegal to store this foam, but training with it by anyone was banned in April. And EPA did a big investigation which called out companies that were breaching restrictions on this foam brought in a decade ago but didn't prosecute anyone. So that's what is being used by the fire crews training at the refinery.
And what's been the reaction to this then?
Well, a very great deal of unhappiness by the union, you can imagine. They are saying they want to see health and environmental tests, which the council says to us that the company has told it is doing. The union accuses the refinery of being either disorganised or negligent. They say the fire crews got covered in this foam when they used it, 60,000 litres worth. Refining New Zealand told me it's a disappointing occurrence, that it had been made aware of it recently without saying how it was made aware, that it's taking steps to fix it and it won't happen again.
And the refinery's investigation, what else does that show?
Well, you're talking about this. Others who hold this foam are exporting it for destruction, but not the refinery. This investigation report says they are keeping hold of it because it makes up their quota of stock they need in case they have a major emergency. Crews trained with this foam between April 14th and June the 5th. 600 litres of the Thunderstorm, it's called Thunderstorm, concentrate was mixed in with 60,000 litres of water. Now that's despite the storage, this Thunderstorm being clearly marked and labelled as not to be used except as a last resort. Now the investigations have made assertions about the fire manager, but the report indicates that they didn't actually speak to him. And when we asked Refining New Zealand about that, they didn't engage with that question. It says in the investigation it's not clear if this was a deliberate decision or a result of the fire manager being confused, but says that because he was in the process of being laid off, this put him under stress. This being laid off didn't have anything to do with the use of the foam. And also quotes that the fear that he was leaving his team vulnerable without having experienced staff to handle an emergency response scenario may have had something to do with it.
Well, as you say, Phil, you've been reporting on this for many years. We've known about the dangers of this foam for many years.
We certainly have, and New Zealand's been pretty slow on the uptake of getting an alert out. Defence Force was a couple of years behind Australia. 20 years ago, the US was across this, but it's true to say that across the world there's been a lot of resistance to doing anything, including here. These are, though, persistent organic pollutants the world has agreed to get rid of. The country is trying to phase them out entirely. As I say, it comes a long time since the US warned about this. The refinery that's sitting on the Marsden Ruakaka aquifer. Now, I understand that fire training ground is mostly lined with concrete, but the company says it is now looking at treatment for the stormwater.
Phil Pennington, thank you very much for that update.
Now, from today, those over 55 will be able to get themselves in for a Mate Corona vaccine. That's 5 days ahead of schedule. The Ministry of Health says those who aren't yet vaccinated won't need to wait for an invitation. You'll be able to book in through the website or the 0800 number to get the shots. Now, the Ministry's lead of the Primary Care Vaccination and Immunisation Programme is Dr Joe Bourne. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
How is it we got here earlier?
It's really testament to the way that district health boards, general practices, community pharmacies and Hawara have all scaled up their vaccination capacity.
It's not because, for example, when this schedule was being put together, the timetable was being put together, a few extra days were built in here and there so that you'd be able to have a good news story to put out?
No, it's not because of that at all. The booking system that we've got now allows us to see what capacity we have in the system, and we can look at that on a daily basis. And where we see that we're moving well through the previous age bands, then we're able to open up this next age band earlier.
When you say moving well through previous age bands, does that mean you're having a good uptake of older groups or indeed the groups 1, 2 and 3?
Yeah, we're really happy with the uptake that we've got. It seems that New Zealanders are really embracing the vaccine, and when we're opening up slots to them, they're taking them.
If we can put some numbers around this, what are you looking at in percentage terms for some of these groups that have already been able to book vaccines or get the vaccine? You know, for example, what proportion of Group 3 have been vaccinated? What proportion of over 65s?
Well, we've got over 500,000 active bookings sitting there for people over the age of 60. So that's a significant number of bookings, and bookings in total that we've got active in the system at the moment is over 950,000. So we're really seeing people taking the opportunity.
So are you confident then that we might get in the adult population to herd immunity on what you're seeing now?
Well, at this stage, with the evidence, we're not entirely sure where herd immunity will be, but we're certainly really pleased with the way that we're progressing at the moment, and we continue to review the evidence to see where we need to get to.
Are some areas busier than others?
There will always be a degree of variation across the country, but when we look at what's available moving forward, we've got good confidence that anyone booking anywhere within New Zealand will be able to go online today or phone the 0800 number, and they'll be able to get a booking within the next few weeks. And some may be stretching into the beginning of September.
Seeing as this group are up a few days early, those over 55, what about the next one down, those over 45? Are they going to be able to, do you think, come in sooner as well?
I probably think there's no, what we wouldn't want to do is create any false expectations. So because we're able to look at this data on a daily basis, we will continue to review it. And as soon as we feel that we've progressed enough through the current age band, we will move on to the next one. But I don't want to start creating specific dates because I think we're able to be more flexible than that.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us on Morning Report. That is Dr Joe Bourne from the Ministry of Health talking about the COVID vaccine. And if you're over 55, you can get in from today. Well, New Zealand is a step closer to banning gay conversion therapy after legislation criminalising the practice passed its first hurdle in Parliament. The proposed bill criminalises treatment that aims to change people's sexual orientation and gender identity, despite that change being impossible. All political parties except National supported the legislation at its first reading, with many MPs speaking strongly in support of it.
Madam Speaker, we want to make a very firm statement that conversion practices do not work.
Conversion therapy is monstrous. It is not therapy, it is hate. I felt like I was broken. I felt like I needed to be fixed. I heard words like abomination. I am not an abomination. My God does not believe I'm an abomination. He loves me just the way I am.
Some, though, did speak against it.
Parents should be allowed to be parents and to explore sexuality and gender with their children.
So the Labor government members are basically saying the state should have more say over your family than parents. That's exactly it. That is the crux of it. So make the parental exemption. Make the parental exemption.
The National Party says it supports the bill's intent, but not its current wording. National's Chris Penk says its biggest concern is the potential effect on parents' ability to talk to their children.
We'll see what is brought forward by way of things that we may not have understood or considered as at now, because I say the bill is pretty new, but certainly the one major sticking point that appears clear to us is that it's not clear that a parent will be free from criminal prosecution following a conversation with their own child, even as initiated by the child. There's no consent exception and there's no parental exception.
RNZ has been told of division in the National Caucus between its more liberal MPs and the religious Conservatives. Chris Penk was asked what it would take for the party's caucus to reach consensus and support the legislation.
It's very much the ball's in the government's court, because if the Minister, Chris Farfoy, can do a better job of understanding and explaining his own bill, that will give us more comfort. And certainly if there's a willingness to listen and to change as needed, including and especially again in relation to the parental exemption and maybe allowing for a young person, if they want to consent, to have a discussion, then that'll make our life a lot easier in terms of deciding.
Well, the bill now goes to Select Committee. Senior members of Pride groups shared their disappointment with the National Party's vote, with Auckland Pride Festival board member and Conversion Therapy Action Group co-founder Chanel Lal tweeting to suggest the party could no longer be welcome at Pride. Auckland Pride Executive Director Max Tweedy tweeted to say MPs refused to support progress for the community. If you want to hear more on this story, you can listen to Focus on Politics. That's coming up after Checkpoint at 6:30 tonight. Part of the problem in Australia is people who won't get vaccinated. At times it does feel like your social media feeds can be filled with people pushing back against the safety of the vaccine. But just how many of these anti-vaxxers are really out there? With us now is a researcher in talking about complex issues, Jess Berntson-Shaw, who's bringing out a guide on exactly how to do this. Kia ora, Jess.
Kia ora, Susie.
So, how do you do it? How do you have conversations with anti-vaxxers to, I guess, try to change people's minds?
Well, it's interesting you should ask, because one of the things that we know from the research is we should probably spend time dealing less with vaccine denial as an idea and much more time building trust in the rest of the population. Because one of the things that happens when we spend a lot of time talking about vaccine denialism is exactly what you just talked about, is that we get the sense that it's larger than it is as an idea. And we see it so much on social media and we talk about it, but what we know in New Zealand and in Australia is that the group of people who believe that vaccines don't work is actually relatively small, and we want to keep that contained. It's somewhere around 9%, and that will probably get smaller as more people get vaccinated as well. And within the Victorian case, going into another lockdown, we know will lead to increasing numbers of people getting vaccinated because they want to avoid another lockdown.
But I guess, are you drawing a distinction between people who are like straight out anti-vax, wouldn't get any vaccine, and people who might be a bit hesitant about the COVID shot?
Yeah. So we know that, for example, lots of people with hesitations will go on to get vaccinated. It's really normal to move from having hesitations to getting vaccinated, mainly because people do so because they want to protect the people around them and those that they care about. What you want to do is make sure that the ideas of vaccine denialism are kept contained and don't spread over into some of those people who might have hesitations. So I was just going to say, so how do you actually engage with people then, if we're talking about people who are vaccine hesitant, how to have those conversations? We were hearing earlier on Morning Report from a nurse who's been going into ports to help convince reluctant port workers to have the vaccine. And it's really interesting. I was listening to her talk actually, and she's doing a lot of what the evidence says that we should do, which is not about giving people lots of facts. It's really interesting. We often hear people say, in order for them to feel like they want to trust the vaccine more, that they want more facts. But actually, when we do research, and we've done research in Australia recently, and we give people more facts, for example, we tell them how low the risk is of any sort of vaccine side effects, they don't feel more trust. What they do, when they do feel more trust, is when you talk about why we get vaccinated for each other. And that's exactly what that nurse was doing. She was talking about how we can build up the sense of collective immunity. So when all of us get vaccinated, we protect each other and the people around us and the people we care about. It is about showing people within the health system and how they care about the well-being of others. So, for example, here in Wellington, we've had Pacifica vaccination festivals, and that's really about helping build trust in the process for people who might have reason not to distrust people or not to trust people in the health system.
So it's about connecting with people on, not so much on perhaps an intellectual level, but on an emotional level.
Exactly, because we don't make decisions about this sort of thing on the basis of logic. In fact, we make decisions about what we value and trust, and we know that vaccine hesitation, there's lots of reasons behind why people might be hesitant and why they might not trust vaccines. So it's one of the best strategies we have is to really build people's sense of trust, both in the system and in people.
So if it's about that kind of connection, what is the government doing that is in that territory, and what more could be done to connect on that emotional level with people, with communities that might feel a bit uncomfortable here?
Yeah, so one of the great things that we're doing in New Zealand is that the vaccines are really easily available. So we know that when people have really easy access to the vaccine, they know that it's free, they know that it's going to be given by people that they trust, and they know that it's going to help protect people around them. That really helps, and we're seeing, in New Zealand we do have good access. In Australia they've had some problems with the rollout. So that really helps come in. I think there is lots of work going on in which the communities themselves who might have low trust, so our Māori communities, for example, or our Pacifica communities who might have low trust in the system, there is ongoing work to ensure that they are leading in the vaccine space and the conversations about vaccine, and definitely more can be done in that space as well.
In terms of where we'll end up here, I mean, people are very reluctant, and understandably so, to put numbers around sort of the final tally or what we'll get to by the end of the year in terms of percentage of the population eligible that's been vaccinated. I mean, are you confident that we're doing the right sorts of things, that we're on the right kinds of tracks to get a good uptake, whatever good is?
Yeah, I really am. It's very interesting. When we look at the numbers, what we see is the vast proportion of New Zealanders are willing and wanting to get vaccinated, and that puts us in a really good position. We know that when other people see people who they trust being vaccinated, then that builds their trust in the vaccination process. So I am relatively confident. I think, we do have a small number of people who believe in vaccine denialism. I think it'll be incredibly hard to shift that very small percentage, but if we can get enough people vaccinated then and build up that collective immunity, then I'm confident we're in a good position.
Now, Mihi, thank you very much for talking to us this morning. Jess Berntson-Shaw there talking about the COVID vaccine and vaccine hesitancy.
You've been listening to Morning Report Top Stories from radionz.co.nz.